is the equivalent of a 1-2 record for match points.
Yep.
So you can go, what is it, 6-0-3?
And make day 2.
Yeah.
That is clearly not your goal.
That's an ugly way to do it, but
Yeah.
you can do it.
But you can do that.
I don't think that I would have Martin's tolerance for traveling to Grand Prix if I was able to teleport there. The fact that he has to get on an airplane and fly someplace is crazy.
You know, at this point, you and I fly across the country a decent amount because I live in Seattle, you live in San Diego, and a lot of our shows on the East Coast. So, you know, we're regularly taking 4 or 5 hour flights, maybe with a stop in between. But, you know, we're basically, you know, expending a day to travel to a tournament. Martin is spending like 2 days.
Right.
Or 3 days. And I think it's probably gotten to the point for him where he's just so used to that amount of travel that it's just nothing. You know, he has to fly from Europe to Orlando. Okay, that's fine. That's what a book, some movies, and he's here.
I guess. I don't know.
Well, you know, just for how much he's traveled and she's flown to the States and Japan and everywhere, I imagine that it's just nothing for him now.
Also, he's from the Czech Republic, right?
Yep.
So that's not, if he was living in, you know, someplace like Amsterdam or London where there's a huge range of direct flights to all these international locations, that would be one thing. But I imagine he's looking at 1 or 2 connections almost everywhere he's going.
I think that is likely.
Yeah.
Either way, I think he is probably, and I don't want to lock this in because Shuhei Nakamura doesn't exist, but he might be our most well-traveled player on the Pro Tour. Shuhei does a lot of flying as well.
Shuhei has everyone beat.
Yeah. It would actually be kind of interesting to watch a frequent, like, take a look at just these, like, the players who travel all around, the frequent flyer miles they have, who has more.
Shuhei's got to have everyone
I think
beat.
Shuhei probably has everyone beat, but I think Martin's right up there.
Shuhei is something like 85,000 Planeswalker points.
Yeah, an egregious number.
That's the number of Planeswalker points that he has is more than me and Gerard Fabiano put together. And Gerard's played in every tournament he's been able to for 15 years, and I played in every tournament I could for about 12. And he has us beat combined. How's it even possible?
Martin is on a mulligan down to 5 here. He's also on the play. He's going to start by playing a Dismal Backwater. And round number 7 is underway here from Orlando as Juza does start the game at 21. Due to that land, a Tranquil Cove will put Casale up to 21 as well.
5-card hands on the play and sealed. It's just tough to win.
Not great.
And there's not really any bomb rares or mythics in this format that are free wins. They're all some amount of work. There's no turn 2 pack rat going on here that can cheat even a 5-card hand.
Rugged Highlands is James's second land, so he's up to 22. And now a Scoured Baron, so the cat's out of the bag as far as colors are concerned here, I think.
All of them.
Yeah, Martin is just going to draw and pass as he is missing some land drops now on his mulligan. James will play a Morph, and it doesn't look like he has a 4th land, so we could have a bit of a game here if Martin's able to find a land.
Well, sort of.
Here's an attack for 2. Let's see what James has this turn. Maybe another Morph?
Most likely. If they played a Morph the first time, they're probably playing a Morph the second time.
Yeah, and there is the second Morph. Over to Juza we go. Does not look like he has a land. A little bit of frustration here for Martin. He's going to have to discard a card.
The mulligan to 5 / discard to hand size is super frustrating.
Humbling is the word I would use. Frustrating is another. And he will discard. It's a tough start here for Martin.
I believe he just discarded the Rakshasa Vizier.
That's correct. Another Morph here after an attack for 4.
Well, the thing is, if he keeps discarding a hand size, his delves are going to... All right, never mind.
His delves are going to be good? Yeah. You are ever the apologist. As you see the Morphs here for James, he'll show those off to Martin, and we'll head to a second game here very quickly. And I think, you know, this is a situation, I actually think that sideboarding is going to be difficult for both players as Martin didn't really see anything, and James clearly saw nothing.
Correct.
So I think the only sideboarding that will take place is maybe if they felt that they built their original decks incorrectly and they want to shore that slot up. As you see, James is sideboarding something in and out very, very quickly. But for Martin, I can't imagine he's going to change too much, though he will give a look.
Well, a lot of it depends on do you have cards in your main deck that you're playing to shore up the early game against aggressive decks that you don't really want in the 5-color matchup. And those are to me, those are the cards that are most likely to be sided in or out in this kind of matchup because both players, it's pretty clear, are on some sort of 4 or 5-color strategy.
Juza, you see taking a long look through his sideboard. Maybe he's changing things up as Patrick did mention. We will see, of course, but while we do wait, If you guys are just joining us, we do appreciate it here. Grand Prix Orlando brought to you guys by StarCityGames.com. Cedric Phillips, Patrick Sullivan in the booth right now. Matthias Hunt will be joining us for round number 8 and round number 9. We've also got Andrew Shrout and Nick Miller in the sideboard. Rich Hagon providing some text coverage this weekend as well. So a star-studded crew to bring you this Grand Prix here in Orlando. It's been a lot of fun so far.
Yeah, it's been a great, we've had great matches on camera. We have a great crew running the event, and still a lot of magic in front of us. To me, one of the cards that I was alluding to, Martin does not have in his deck, is Disowned Ancestor. That's, to me, sort of the preeminent, spectacular against beatdown decks, and not very good in these kind of matchups. So there are some cards where, once you know your opponent is on a 5-color strategy, you can comfortably board them out, I feel like.
I like that card. I think Disowned Ancestor is pretty good.
And Martin's deck has a ton of non-basic lands. I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
11?
11.
Wow.
A Bloodstained Mire, 2 Blossoming Sands, 2 Dismal Backwaters, a Flooded Strand, a Jungle Hollow, a Nomad Outpost, a Rugged Highlands, a Tranquil Cove, and a Windscarred Crag.
I have a very modest 8 over here for James. And 8 seems like a lot. So,
Yeah, I'd say so.
it's just, that's what the mana bases are going to look like in this format for Sealed, I think. Again, because those lands are slotting in at common, and then a few of them at uncommon, the tri-lands, and of course at rare, you've got the fetch lands. This is just what mana bases are going to look like.
Well, sometimes. I mean, you get these kind of pools, of course,
Yep.
are going to look like this, but you can, juxtapose that with, say, Eli Casis's deck that we had on camera earlier, which is literally just a black-white deck splashing Obzon Charm off of 3 green-producing dual lands inside of his wedge. So there's a lot of room for variation, but I feel like we've seen a lot of these 4 and 5 color decks on camera today.
Yeah, and Casis's splash was so minor. It was only for an Absalom Charm.
Yeah, and
That was
just,
it.
yeah, when I was looking through the deck, I almost couldn't believe it.
Yeah. Some players have opted to go that route this weekend, and it's clearly working out for them. But we've seen a lot more of this action here, the 5-color. My deck can kind of do it all as long as I draw the mana, and if I do draw the mana, I can cast all my powerful spells.
Though the mana bases are, as you mentioned earlier, even with a bunch of dual lands, pretty high variance, There's no real 5-color fixer in the format. So these dual lands, these tri-lands, they certainly help, but there's no guarantee that everything's going to line up the right way.
Looks like James's best payoff card, because of course you take a look at the mana base and you take a look at the gold cards. He's got a Flying Crane technique. So that might be the best card in his deck and his payoff for being 5-color.
I'm looking, what are the real payoffs here in Martin's deck, and he has a Sagu Baller. That's great.
It's a good start.
Rakshasa Vizier can be very powerful if you have a lot of Delve cards, but not necessarily. And an Obzon Charm, it's very good. But yeah, nothing too spectacular from what I can gather here.
Always kind of searching for what's the bomb rare.
Yeah. Clever Impersonator, which can be a bomb if someone cooperates.
Yep. See if Martin opts to player draw this game. Looks like he actually has lands this go around, so that's a step in the right direction. And it looks like it is James's turn to take a mulligan. So he'll take a look at 6. It's just going to be, what's going to be there are a lot of things that are fun about this format to me, but I think what's going to be really fun is just kind of seeing how, after this weekend and after the Pro Tour next weekend, how players kind of evaluate cards and where the difference in opinions will be and what they feel are the best cards and the mediocre cards and the best archetypes, and kind of see the direction that the hive mind goes in with this format.
It's interesting because there's so many there's so many different ways to approach the booster draft format. The easiest thing to do is pick a wedge and draft it, which is kind of what I've been doing. You can go kind of the Neil Reeves school, which is just try to take all the mana fixing early and gobble up all the goodies in pack 3 that people are passing you. And then there's the opposite approach to that, which is, I'm just going to try to build a 2-color beatdown deck and capitalize on all of the slowness.
Martin's going to start with a Bloodstained Mire, sacrifice that immediately, and go down to 19, get a Swamp, while James is actually going to go up to 21, thanks to our good friends, Scoured Barrens. Martin will play a Windscarred Crag. He's back up to 20. James will draw. He will play an Island and pass the turn back over to Juza.
So why did Martin break that Bloodstained Mire right away and get a Swamp and then comes in and play tap land second? That looks like odd sequencing. because he has a mountain in his hand and only one mountain and one swamp in the deck. So if he draws the
Makes sense.
swamp, he actually can't find anything with that Bloodstained Mire.
Yep. And attack with the morph and just pass the turn back. Little Juza. It's funny too because Martin just knew that immediately, right? He's just like, I have to crack this now because if I don't crack it now, this gets really awkward if I draw that card.
In that practice sealed I did with you where I had a mana base very similar when Windswept Heath, trust me, that was on my mind.
Yeah. James doesn't look like he has a 4th land to play, so Martin will play his 5th land. Here's 5 mana. And Martin will play a Sultai Scavenger. Now, if you've never played against Martin before, Martin tries to play around everything. It would be very easy for him to attack this turn, wouldn't it?
Well, an opponent who missed his land drop and has no morph to play when you saw so many morphs last game, it's very realistic for him to have kill shot here. And I'm in Martin's school. I don't mind not attacking here for a real long time. Opponents close to discarding the hand size, they're not doing anything. Just develop your board, and eventually you can overwhelm that kill shot.
Yeah, now here's a morph. Now Martin can happily attack. He quickly untaps and draws a card.
And that's the giveaway that kill shot's in the hand there,
Yep.
because James drew a comes into play tapped land and then played a morph. So he obviously drew the comes into play tap land that turn because he's been missing land drops. He had the morph in his hand the previous turn, so he was clearly holding up kill shot or some other removal spell. Martin sniffed it out, and now James is way behind in tempo.
And now Martin also knows that there is a kill shot for the duration of the game until it's cast.
Yeah, Martin did a great job sniffing that out, and now James he can either start casting stuff and just be behind one turn for the whole game, which is really bad, or he can try to do this, and I think Martin's going to bob and weave and only play into that kill shot when he's ready to.
That kill shot is going to be as good as Martin lets it be this game.
Exactly.
There's a forest. Again, we could be in a situation here where Martin just deploys a creature and just says, your turn. See, he's got Hooting Mandrills in his hand. Here's an attack. There's kill shot. See if Martin has a card like Feat of Resistance here. I'll tell you this can't come as much of a surprise. I will say that.
Yeah, Martin knew this was here. Now it's just, why was he willing to make this attack?
Kill shot right now targeting the Sultai Scavenger. So going after the 3/3 flyer. See the Abzan Charm over there for Juza. Decisions. Just make you wonder what he's considering. Don't have a great look at the hand.
Yeah. With the exception of the charm,
Yeah.
it is not particularly clear. And the Hooting Mandrills.
Yeah. It's a cancel. Okay. And it actually makes for an interesting situation, right? Because it's basically saying, the thought process I think there is, man, cancel is really, really good given the situation that I'm in, which I'm so far ahead. So do I want to waste this on the kill shot that I knew about, or do I want to save this for potentially a great threat?
Well, the flip side is, if you think that James is going to untap and say go again, holding up the kill shot, the cancel is almost priced in to just targeting the kill shot. That's kind of how that plays out. And the only question is, at what stage does Martin want to make that exchange? So if Martin has other things to do with his mana, especially his blue mana, it's probably worth just getting in while the getting's good, getting some damage, cancel the kill shot, and then use your mana for other stuff next turn.
Winter Flame, the deal 2 damage was going to go after the morph. However, Abzan Charm says, I don't think so. Gonna put some counters on some creatures. You can try again, my friend. Really nice use of that card. Of course, this is the distribute 2+1/+1 counters among one or two target creatures, mode of Abzan Charm.
This is 3 good deals. Other than the looted cards being 2 good deals, that's 3 good deals.
That's 3 good deals. You were right about that. There's an attack with the morph there from James. Gonna put Martin down to 16. But Juza is definitely ahead in this game.
It's a really satisfying feeling. Now, James has missed some land drops, but he's calling out a little bit. Where Martin's in a position to potentially win the game against an opponent with 5 lands in play and a bunch of spells in hand, because he's done an exquisite job of playing around all the tricks that he could sense James had in his hand.
And don't forget, if you've ever watched Martin play before, I don't know how many of you have at home, he is very, very skilled at playing around, or at least tries to play around everything. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's a situation maybe in this game or match where he tries to play around a card like maybe End Hostilities, for example.
Exactly.
remember watching a game at Grand Prix Portland, I believe a Grand Prix that he did win, where he did his darndest to play around a mind control. He was correct in trying to do so, but he played in such an obscure way to try to beat the card. He was correct in reading his opponent for the card. He won the match and ended up winning the tournament. So he goes out of his way when he can to play around spells.
And it's one thing to play around something like mind control for a turn. It's another thing to take a step back, sense that mind control is there, and be able to come up with a plan for 4 or 5 turns of playing around it. That's a much more difficult thing to do.
AJ Soccer chiming in. We were talking about Shuhei Nakamura and who has maybe the most frequent flyer miles. AJ, actually a pretty good friend of Shuhei, says it's Shuhei by a lot. A nice stat for us here in the booth and you guys at home. He has played in 40% of the GPs that have ever happened.
That can't be a thing.
Do
we exclude, with this stat, if he's attending a Grand Prix and there's another Grand Prix going on that weekend, do we exclude that other Grand Prix for the purposes of this stat?
That's a good question.
Because I would believe 40% if we're doing that. If we're also counting weekends where he can't be in 2 places at once,
are we sure he's not
as far as we know?
Are we sure he's not at both?
40% that is outrageous.
The man likes to play some Magic. That much we do know. Martin does too, to be fair.
I don't know if I would have attended 40% of the Grand Prix if they were all held in my living room. and they're all over the place, you know. It's kind of tough.
Just need that weekend off.
Yeah, sometimes you know you just need a weekend off.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of people, you know. Whatever.
Sure. Get out of my living room.
Get out.
All of you, please leave.
What are you doing here? How did you get in?
How does Sergeant Whiskers feel about this?
He doesn't like people very much.
Yeah, I didn't think so. Game number 3 here between James and Martin. We'll be underway shortly of round number 7. They're actually moving a lot faster than I thought it would, given that it's a 5-color mirror. Both games have been very short. These games seem like they would be much longer and drawn out, honestly.
Well, game 1, only one person was really playing.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a factor. But game 2, Martin was able to get ahead on tempo, and that's a weird thing about these 5-color mirror matches from what I've been observing. You would think it's just raw power. Who has the most rares, who has the most big stuff. But because of morphs and being able to get on the board early and start attacking, tempo is a factor in these 5-color matches, even though a lot of it is about raw power as well.
See who wants to play or draw first here. I do find it interesting. Hopefully I'll get to talk to the players over the course of this week. And if you're a 5-color sealed deck and you're against another 5-color sealed deck, do you play or draw? Do you try to tempo up, or do you try to just get that extra card? You're going to start the game probably 22 anyway.
Well, Martin elected to draw that game.
Yeah.
So he's trying to, just make his land drops and hope that his colored mana comes into play on time. But he was still able to take the initial tempo of that game. And there's a lesson there about that kill shot. I think against, if you're in the 0-0, the 1-0 bracket of a Grand Prix, you can go ahead and pass with 3 mana up, knowing that your opponent's going to attack to a kill shot. When you start playing against the Martin Users of the world, they're going to make you eat that whole turn.
Yep.
If you're willing to commit your mana like that.
He will see right through that.
Yeah.
And he did so quite eloquently in that game.
This ain't amateur hour. It's not open mic night.
Not anymore. Not anymore. You're getting deep into the tournament.
Yep.
You're in a feature match against one of the best players that ever played this game. Dismal Backwater is how he'll start. He's at 21. Casale will just play a forest and pass the turn back. It's an island. Back to James we go. There's a forest for him. That's a little bit ugly to start with those 2 lands in a 5-color deck.
Especially a deck that has so many non-basics.
Right, 8 of them.
It does appear that he has a swamp in hand, but that's still not going to be enough colored mana to be able to play an effective game, most likely.
Martin's going to start here with Rakshasha's Secret. So this is the mind rot waking nightmare of the set. Martin will, of course, have to turn over 2 cards and put them in his graveyard.
Waking nightmare reference.
Oh, I go
Look at
deep.
you.
I go deep from Kamigawa block, baby. That card had Arcane, by the way.
I know that.
Yeah. I don't know why I always think of Waking Nightmares at discards, but I played a lot of Kamigawa block.
I guess you did.
Yeah, I did.
I mean, I played a lot too, but I didn't have that reference ready to go.
Yeah. It's a morph there for James. You saw him discard 2 really good cards, Abomination of Gadul and Suspension Field, but you also see his mana, not 1, not 2, but 3 forests in a 5-color deck?
Well, that's, in an odd way, the fact that James is missing colors here makes that Rakshasa secret much worse, because most likely James has off-color cards he has no hope of casting.
Hooting Mandrill is going to come in. The turn 4/4 with Trample. Normally you play a 4/4 for 4. Sometimes there's a drawback. No drawback here. Martin just had to remove those 2 cards from his graveyard for Delve. Pretty good deal. James's mana is just really, really ugly right now. Martin's isn't great, to be fair, but he has 3 colors where James has 1. James did pick up a copy of Frontier Bivouac for the turn, so he can fix some things. Also has a Swamp Hiding out over there. It does make you wonder what this morph is, though.
And I wonder if the sequencing here is coming back to hurt him a little bit, because he had the option of playing a swamp earlier in this turn, so you don't know if you want to play the land that comes to play tap and play a black 3-mana spell, but he settled on something else.
Here's a Bellowing Saddle Brute. That is a 4-mana 4/5. Now, when you raid,
2 good deals.
well, that's debatable. But James did have to take 4. When you raid, you don't have to take 4, but James did. 2 good deals indeed. Looks like Martin did pick up a copy of Sagumara. That might be the morph that he played this turn.
I think that card is very powerful, by the way. I don't mind just casting it on turn 4 in the open, you know?
I think it's quite good, yeah.
And if you're ever attacking, that already means you're probably doing pretty well in the game. And then you get a 4/5 for 4 in this format where it's so stat sensitive because of morphs. A great card.
A 4/5 for 4 beats the, common interaction of attack and dragon scale boon my guy, too.
Or so many of the powerful 4-color morphs, 3-color morphs rather, at common.
Yep.
They don't morph into 4/5s, really. Not that many of them.
It's pretty nice. It is pretty nice. So let's see what James can come up with on this turn.
Martin doing a very good job of settling the game here a little bit. I believe with a Sultai Flare.
Yep. Flare's an interesting card, too. It sits at uncommon. It's a 4-mana 3/4. Whenever a creature you control with toughness 4 or greater dies, you gain 4 life. Now, here's Winter Flame. It's going to kill the morph and tap down the Hooting Mandrills, which will allow James to attack. So he's going to get a little bit aggressive here.
And what a morph that James was able to kill there in Sagu Baller.
Yeah.
Because if Martin gets a mana number 5 there, you can probably forget about it.
Sagu Mauler is one heck of a card. There have been a lot of horror stories on the floor about what that card has done. Martin's going to get aggressive now. He's going to attack here for 7. Caselle's going to go down to 9. The follow-up here is the Sultai Scavenger. Delve will allow Martin to cast that, so he's got a 3/3 flyer now, too.
But Martin missing colors, missing land drops. He's got a very good board. But this is a spot where you can get overpowered.
Here's 5 mana. It's a Treasure Cruise. If you're Martin, you're probably okay with that.
Well, if Martin hits a land drop next turn, he's definitely okay with it. If he doesn't, it could still get hairy here, you know.
Tranquil
He's got a
Cove.
4/5 back on defense, so if Martin doesn't have a pump spell, he's only going to be able to attack with the Scavenger.
And that's all you can attack with in the air. James is going to go down to 7. He did gain life again from the Tranquil Cove, which is going to help with his mana, too. Give him some white mana that he didn't have before. Draws another land for the turn.
Yeah, but Martin's hand all expensive and missing colors of mana. You see a Tormented Voice in his hand he can't cast, a Charm he can't cast, a Throttle he can't cast.
Yep.
Once your opponent resolves a Treasure Cruise, you got to be a little worried.
I was wondering if that was the window for James to actually cast the Treasure Cruise. Looks like he didn't have anything better to do, so looks like it worked out okay. That morph has been out there for some time now. The question is, what is down there? Can Martin afford to attack again with this 3/3 flyer? And the answer is a resounding no.
Yeah, and I like this strategy a lot from Martin. If you're not going to do anything, I'm not going to do anything.
Willie Loxon will get unmorphed here from James, though. Now the 6/7 is face up, and it can attack if it wants.
Well, I don't think this board is quite stable enough yet for James to go on the offensive, you know. He's going to be the control deck in this spot.
James tapping 2 mana. He's going to cast a Savage Punch into that open mana. So let's do battle here, shall we?
Though the flip side here is that James also has to speed the game up a little bit, because with Martin all these spells in hand, you don't want him to draw land number 5 or the color of mana he's missing, or whatever the case may be, and start unleashing whatever he's holding in his hand. So he needs to control the pace of the game while still getting in some attacks here.
Bellowing Saddlebrood's going to fight the Sultai Scavenger. Now, of course, because Ferocious is live for the Savage Punts, not only do they fight, but a creature gets +2/+2 as well. So we'll see if the Saddlebrood wants to get into the red zone. It was a 4/5, now it's a 6/7. Oddly enough, so is the Woolly Loxodon. So perhaps those two creatures make their way into the red zone here?
Well, James with a kill shot in hand, which makes making an attack here pretty attractive. As long as he has some way to clean up one of the creatures on the way back. Maybe he doesn't want to get into a pure race here, even if he's willing to kill shot the Hooting Mandrills, but he's got to get on the offensive here, I feel like. He's got to attack with at least one creature and maybe two. Martin clearly is color screwed and or land screwed, and you need to close this game out before he's able to draw out of it. I know you're worried you're at 7, and it's risky to go on the offensive too, but you got to start pushing.
There's 6, man. This is a flying crane technique.
Okay.
Well, then.
That's a lot. So the reason that James is doing this now, even though he gets to untap his creatures, is because he saw cancel out of Juza's deck. So he wants to know if it gets canceled before he makes his attack.
Because he could attack. Yeah, he's going to extend the hand here as Martin. So James is going to win this match 2-1. Flying Crane Technique is going to get it done. But what he could do is attack, and then if he casts Flying Crane Technique, Martin cancels it, then he just dies with a counterattack.
Exactly. Yep. So even though that's a non-intuitive play there, I like James playing around the cancel he's seen. And you can see why the Flying Crane Technique is a forbidden move, as it kills Juza from 17 with 2 blockers in play.
Yeah, you thought you